Well, good morning again. You're watching Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, East Sussex, in the country of the United Kingdom. And I was looking at some of our statistics now. It's amazing the people around the world that are watching. And we welcome you every bit as much as we welcome those people who are in our own backyard. Now, on a Monday and a Friday, we changed our format slightly because we have the benefit of Richard Barton, and on a Friday he's joined by Philip Meredith, so that we can take a look at what goes on in the courts, particularly Crown Court. But Philip and Richard choose a topic each week to try and help you understand how the courts work and some of the consequences if you're naughty and you break the law. But on the rest of the week, we actually take a look, a backgrounder into what's going on in the news, and that's what we're going to do right now. So it's the first paper that we'll take a look at, the first front page, is The Guardian, which says the pressure on the Prime Minister to launch an inquiry into Braverman's speeding row. Now, Suella Braverman is in trouble because she's been speeding, and there she is. No, we can't actually show you this this morning because it's terribly strange. This app, which we rather like, it works terribly well for us. But it came time to renew, and the bank wouldn't renew it. So I looked into it, and it looks all right. But for some reason, it won't click in to the people who run it. So we've had to reduce ourselves temporarily to what they call the free version, and that limits some of the things that we can do. We're keeping the service going, and we're trying very hard. We're trying to pay, the systems won't let us. And it just goes back to what I say about computers, because here we've got a computerized system that will not work. And what do? Well, we've spoken to our supplier. We've spoken to the bank. Everybody says it's perfectly all right. But it's not. Nobody is talking to IT. And I'm afraid that the track record of computers is far from that which the manufacturers and the users would have us believe. The IT people say, no, it's very efficient and so on. It can't go wrong. Well, it does go wrong, and it goes wrong with alarming frequency. And that bothers me because we place our trust medically, as far as transport is concerned, in the hands of computers. Now, I don't advocate that we get rid of computers. What I am saying is that man has got to learn to control the computers to make sure that the computers actually work on his behalf or her behalf or our behalf, and not dictate exactly how things are going to happen. And the powers that be, those people to whom we are getting less and less confidence, our leaders, won't do anything about it. In fact, they don't seem to understand that these problems exist. It's a very unfortunate situation, and it results sometimes in things that are very inconvenient and very upsetting, and this is one of them. Never mind. What we'll do is we will talk to you about it. And The Guardian is the pressure on the Prime Minister to launch an inquiry into Braverman's speeding row. And The Guardian is among several papers to focus on the row over the Home Secretary's speeding offence. The Prime Minister is under intense pressure to launch an inquiry to determine if Suella Braverman broke the ministerial code by requesting a private speed awareness course, the paper reports. The PM is to consult his ethics advisors, Sir Laurie Magnus, on the matter, it adds. Now, yes, of course, one must expect the highest level of probity for those people who are our leaders. But by the same token, once again, here we go. It's like the bloody Christmas cake. It takes the eye of the many, many balls that are rolling around that need government attention. And instead, it's all about you did this and you did that. If she's got a speeding ticket and she's paid it and didn't bother to tell anybody, well, I wouldn't tell anybody if I'd got a speeding ticket either. So I don't find that this is terribly morally wrong. And I just wish that they would get on with looking after their constituents, that is us, instead of fighting about all this silly nonsense. It is the eye. Sunak under pressure to call ethics inquiry into Braverman's speeding claims. It's the same story. Opposition MPs want an inquiry into the Home Secretary's actions, as well as claims that her officials denied she had been caught speeding when asked about it several weeks ago. Now, lying to the House of Commons, I don't know that she did lie to the House of Commons. They just lied when asked about it. But in past days, I think in the 1970s it would be, that the issue of the Profumo, a minister called Profumo, who actually I think was a foreign secretary, got involved with some prostitutes, Mandy Rice Davis and Christine Keeler. And when asked in the House of Commons whether in fact this was so, because it just so happened that they were also sleeping with a member of the Russian embassy, therefore creating a security risk. And when asked if that was so, and asked in the House of Commons, he denied it. And then when eventually it came out, what his crime was lying to the House of Commons, not sleeping with a prostitute, although I think that his wife, who was a former film star, I think Gloria Swanson, must have had something to say about it. But he lied to the House of Commons, and as a consequence, he did resign and lost his ministerial post. In fairness, he actually set about a life of public service. He lived an impeccable life. His wife stood by him, and he ended up being recognized as one of the most decent politicians that we had at that time. But nonetheless, if she hasn't lied, although she's lied, but not to the House of Commons, for goodness sake, why don't we just let it rest and let her and the rest of those layabouts in Westminster get on with it? The Mirror, Braverman, new scandal, fast track her out. Well, of course, the Mirror goes as extreme as the others sometimes go in defense. And it says the Home Secretary did not confirm the speeding incident earlier. A new scandal. Whoa! The paper also quotes Labour's Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, saying that there are serious questions to answer over this row. Oh, yeah. What about the economy? What about energy prices? What about inflation? What about the war in Ukraine, in which Braverman would be, to some extent, directly involved? What about all those things? So whether, in fact, she didn't admit or confess straight away about a speeding ticket, well, the mind boggles at what goes on in Westminster and how they think. They think like pygmies. And then they behave like pygmies. And it's all out of control. People are getting very, very twitchy about the way of life. I've been discussing this with a couple of my political friends over the weekend. And we really want to see some leadership. We want to see some people who have a vision for this country and that follow that vision instead of farting around with Christmas cakes and whether somebody is going to have their license endorsed. Dearie me. And if I may say so, from me talking to a number of people And of course, I can't stop talking politics, and I can't stop talking news, and I can't stop talking business. And so I get a fair feel. And people are feeling very insecure and very unhappy because of what's happening at the top. So let's get some leadership, both from the opposition and from government. Let's see. The Daily Telegraph reports that allies of the Home Secretary are afraid she's a victim of a smear campaign. Wouldn't surprise me one little bit. Supporters believe that the recent row is a concerted effort to discredit her as she fights for tougher curbs on immigration, which is a controversial issue. I don't doubt this 1 minute, not 1 minute, that this is the case. This is true, and it gets involved with the way that politics works. And indeed, in better times, one could have a certain sympathy that this is the way they have a go at one another. But we are living in very parlous times, times that are not at all comfortable. And we would much rather that they are attended to rather than all this silly nonsense. The Daily Express, right? Europe turns a blind eye to let migrants reach the UK. The Express is complaining that Europe is turning a blind eye to let American migrants reach the UK. Quoting a people smuggler, the Express goes on to suggest that France and other countries can stop the rush to the UK and dangerous crossings, but choose not to. I mean, I think I could have guessed that as well. So if I can guess it, why don't those in the know come out and say, look, this is the way it is? The Sun, Phil, I'm completely broken. Oh dear. This is this issue of Philip Schofield and what's the lady's name? Holly Willoughby. Oh, that's right. Is that a pair of hosts of a television show, for God's sake? Who cares? Who really cares whether, in fact, their relationship has broken down, and that the bosses at ITV have got to decide how they're going to redo the pairing? Oh, I'm completely broken up. Oh, and she is. Oh, butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. Yeah. Well, I've been around this business for a lot longer, and believe me, those that have the bright blue eyes and profess to be such nice people are really so ambitious that niceness is not in their character. And I suspect that these two are just like that. And why on earth we should worry about whether they're broken up or whether they're going to be replaced or whatever, I have no idea. None whatsoever. The Daily Mail, now drug driving overtakes drink driving. Now this is of concern, I think. Is that the Mail reports that drug driving has overtaken drink driving, and a new police report says there's an average of 80 motorists a day are caught under the influence of drugs, and many escape justice due to delays in processing blood tests. Oh, this to me is something else, something that should be looked at. And if in fact the police aren't nicking people for drug driving, because to some extent, it's very funny. Drugs can be far more devastating than alcohol, and yet we have the apologists for them as to why people should be allowed to take drugs. I mean, cannabis is one. It's helpful medicinally and so on. It may be or it may not be. I don't really know, but I don't know that I wake up wondering about it and go to sleep worrying about it. The Times, the NHS app to let patients book private health care. Right, what the Times says is that NHS patients will be encouraged to use the health services app to book care in private hospitals as part of a new plan by the Prime Minister to cut waiting lists. The paper reports private diagnostic centers will also offer checks for cancers and other conditions as part of an effort to use the private sector to boost the NHS's capacity to handle the large backlogs. The Financial Times. China slaps a ban on US chip maker after G7 rebuke ramps up tensions. Well, I had a long talk about China yesterday to somebody who is well, has had something to do with the Chinese and knows how they think. And their view is that the Chinese will just keep after. But basically, what they want is to get Taiwan back. Well, we all want, at a time when the major powers are divesting themselves of their empires. If China wants that, then it's going to be a fly in the ointment, because I think every American president is likely to send a floating time bomb, in other words, an aircraft carrier, into the South China Sea. I think that's where it is. To saber rattle and say, get your hands off. But my informant says that the Chinese will not give up. They will keep at it until they've achieved it. And so we're going to have that tension in that area for quite a long time. But the moment it's an economic war, with China saying that they will not deal with a major US chip maker, microchip maker, after G7 ramps up tensions. Now, just to help those people who are not quite as familiar with the world of commerce as some of us are, not that we're great experts, but G7 is the group of biggest economies in the world who meet in a grouping to discuss where they should go at a macro level. And it became G8 at one stage to accommodate the new Russian economy after Glasnost. But when Putin started to get naughty with the Ukraine and other parts of its, quote, empire, they left or were kicked out, and it went back to being G7. Right, the Daily Star. The Daily Star is obsessed with the weather. And what it says is it's bake Britain. It's going to be hotter than Morocco. The Daily Star says the UK will be hotter than Morocco this week, reaching 24 centigrade, and adding that glorious weather is set to last for the next 42 days. Oh, that's brave, forecasting our weather for that long ahead. But it is right now, for instance, outside here, it's 15 degrees. And it says that it's cloudy, and it's not. Quite often it says it's cloudy, and it's not. The courthouse is bathed in sunshine again. But what the paper is on about is the heat. So be prepared for the heat. Let's see if there's anything that is rollicking around locally. We should be able to not a heck of a lot. In Sussex Live, a man stabbed in the back in Sussex Park. Now, this isn't today. This would be over the weekend. But it is serious. And once again, in the discussions that I had on the weekend, is when you're in this business, Of course, you see a picture far quicker than the average person. And there's no question that just in Sussex, just in East Sussex, we get a stabbing here, an assault there, the odd murder thrown in, and the violence in our society, in our community, is beginning to increase, dramatically increase. Why on earth we're not, excuse me, going back to discussing whether we need a change in the policing? I have no idea. But while our leaders are busy talking about speeding, do you hear them much talking about violence? No, not a bit of it. And even when they do something like getting rid of the head of Scotland Yard or the Met, like Cressida Dick, you don't hear of any change, just a change of personnel. We need a fundamental, basic rethink on how we police our community, because the present one isn't working. It's not working one little bit. Anyway, this was stabbing took place inside an Eastbourne park. It was on Saturday. Officers were called to Hampden Park shortly after 6:30. A 20-year-old man from Brighton suffered a back wound, and the emergency services were rushed to him, taking him to hospital following the incident. The police have now launched an investigation into the stabbing, and then they'll find somebody, and they'll let him out on police bail, and he won't care one jot or tittle about anything, and he'll go and reoffend. The only people that can't see it are people like the police, who are so heavily involved and so on. They seem capable of handling these sort of things. Okay, we're going to go up to something like 17 or 18 today. It is 15 now, mostly cloudy, although that's not the evidence. Where are we? We're 9:55, so we're rapidly coming back on track in terms of our schedule for the day. Oh dear, I've got a little frog in my throat, and it's playing havoc this morning, absolute havoc. Now, I want to ask a question. We have now got a new council. We've got two new councils. One, the district council, and two, the town council. Both now dominated by Greens. Now, if there are new parties, and I don't believe in political parties, not at local level, but still, that's something else. That is a system, and I have to go with it. But what the hell is going on with these parties? First of all, is so I understand, is that independent officials left hurriedly from the mayor-making ceremony at the town hall last week, because the Greens, who organised the thing, politicised it, and it is a non-partisan occasion. I also understand that there is an investigation into some planning irregularities. Now, I'm not mentioning any names at the moment because investigations are going on. But these are things which for the new boys on the block are extremely disturbing. What have we done? Have we shot ourselves in the foot by getting these people in because they sound as if they are the good guys? Because I'm beginning to doubt it. Well, I'm a cynical old bugger. I've doubted it all along, but nonetheless, the electorate decided to put their faith in these people, and they are already breaking faith for political reasons, power, and I suspect a few bob going into pockets which shouldn't. But if we are to have some sense of decency and stability back in our society, and let's face it, Lewis is beginning to crumble at the edges. It needs a lot of visionary thinking. It needs a lot of energy to restore our community to a healthy, bubbling community, and one in which we all have pride. Is not doing very well right from the word go. So let's start to see. I mean, and one thing is they won't come on here. Oh, they don't believe in talking to you. God, no. Electorates, a necessary evil. Well, they get on with, once again, playing their silly games. There is no opposition. The Conservatives are completely wiped out. Labour got 9 seats on the town council anyway. The Lib Dems and the Greens are the 2 major parties. They were very happy working in coalition up until this last election. So how can you say that you will have from these 2 parties a strong opposition? And our form of government depends upon a strong opposition to stop the excesses. The only other group of people to stop excesses are media. And we do our best. We shout and we scream and we stamp our little feet. We don't have the resources to do much else. But we will call to account the people who run our local councils, even though they are arrogant enough not to talk to us. Arrogance. And it does not sit well. And it should not sit well. What we need to do is to pressure them to deliver what they said they would deliver, although the brochures that they shoved through our door, tons of paper. When I mentioned this once again to my colleague yesterday when we were having a beer together and a little chat about politics, a very, very knowledgeable friend, I may say, in the political sphere, he said, well, probably it's all recycled, but you can't recycle stuff unless it's literally made, paper made. And that does need the cutting down of rainforests. How can you be green? Go along with that. But the main point that I'm making is they will now revert, having used print and pretty pictures to get over their electioneering stuff. What we will now find is that they will revert to doing things online, which once again shows they have no concept whatsoever, no concept about their electorate, who are mostly old enough not to be thoroughly computer literate. And they'll get away with it. They'll get away with it. Except this station is growing. This station is getting more and more people. In fact, I would say that we're the fastest growing media around. And we will keep on at them and on at them and on at them. And if they will only respond to huge embarrassments, let us say that there is a whole scandal at City Hall, a whole scandal about the recent town clerk, a whole scandal about some planning applications or lack of. And now the Greens, as the major party, politicizing everything when what they should be doing is doing exactly the opposite. Now, there are good guys. There are some decent guys. Most of the councillors are non-entities. They're only there because they needed to fill a gap. They can strut a little in front of their neighbours, call themselves councillors. But the town council particularly has a track record of not paying too much attention to what it should be doing. Councillors not turning up. But there are some iniquities already. For instance, the Finance Committee is all Greens with one Lib Dem. What sort of opposition is that? No wonder the finances will get out of control. Because it's all one-way traffic. This is what we believe, and nobody else can tell us, and they can't. You try telling a Green anything. They don't want to know. They are holier than thou. And they are also useless. Well, that's what we voted in. We have to put up with it. But we don't have to put up with their excesses or their incompetence. And we're not going to. I'm Keith Hayes. Bear the name. Bear the name. Because we're going to chase these people. Chase them until, as one chancellor said, actually, here's Dennis Healy, one said in one of my first, in 1970s, one of my first budgets, he said, we are going to squeeze the middle classes for taxes until they squeak, the pips squeak. Well, we're going to do the same thing. Because if you can't do something properly and well, and for the community who've put their trust in you, then you don't deserve to be given respect. We can't turf you out, which we could. Mind you, there may be a few resignations. Those people who thought they was going to have it their own way, finding that they're not. There may not be much of an opposition politically, but the citizenry will only put up with so much, and then it starts to ask questions, and then it starts to bark. Let's hope that we, with our little yapping at the moment, get to increase the howl of indignation and the growl and the barking of opposition, to get our local politicians to start to look after our community and not use it for their own, sometimes political and sometimes financial backyards. We'll be back in a minute. No. Yes, we'll be back in a few minutes. Let's put it that way. All right. Toodle pip. And that's the news headlines as they are today. Once again, not very pretty reading. Not very encouraging reading. For God's sake, bring back statesmen. Just the lot we've got at the moment don't deserve any respect. Maybe I'm a benign figure. I don't say nasty things about you. Not bloody likely. Toodle pip.